Hello everyone, welcome to my third vlog in Birmingham, Alabama. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. I create inspiring and informative travel videos. In this video, I'm continuing the Civil Rights Tour, and the next stop is the Negro Southern League Museum.
My name is Mike Tarrant. I'm really from Birmingham. Played in the Industrial Leagues here in Birmingham. I played from 67 to 79, 13 years All-Star. Industrial Leagues were leagues back in the early days when there were manufacturing companies, U.S. Steel, Stockton Valve and Fitting, Moore Handling. Each one of those entities sponsored a baseball team that made up what they called the Industrial Leagues. During the time that I played, there were probably about 30 teams in the Industrial League. It was really well thought of. And a lot of the players from the Negro Leagues, when their careers were over, to be competitive, they came back and played in the Industrial Leagues. That's when I started to play baseball.
Segregation was very strong in the United States in all levels of society, even sports. Baseball, for example, you had the white league and then you had the black league. So here in Birmingham, the baseball team is the Birmingham Barons, and then you had the Birmingham Black Barons. Both leagues were extremely popular with a lot of fans.
It really is embarrassing, to be honest with you, because it shouldn't happen that way. You know, if the way our country is set up, we should be able to do anything we want to do together at any time. But back to the powers that be back in those days, deemed that it shouldn't be that way. When you love something, you do what you have to do, regardless, you know. And I love baseball, bottom line.
Lunch, lunch, lunch. Marjoram, can I see the size of your potatoes?
It's very small. Super small.
Smallest you ever had.
Yeah, I swear. I'm fasting, so that's why small.
Now we're back to the Civil Rights District in Birmingham. We're going to several places important to the civil rights movement, and we're going by bike.
Welcome, this is Zip Bike Share. We are a company that started in 2015 with 40 stations, 400 bikes, 100 of which are electric. And each bike, once you check it out, you have 45 minutes to make it from station to station. That does not mean that that is the end of your ride. We offer a 24-hour membership that gives you access to the system for that 24-hour span. So we have like a cool route, just kind of spotlighting the history of the city. The cool thing about our bikes is also they're really like little telephones. So each one of them has a GPS tracker in them. And so they're live on the system each time one is checked out.
We stop at a funeral home because this funeral home was integral to the movement in Birmingham in many ways. When the leaders of the movement needed to meet and have secret conversations, they came to funeral homes. Here in Birmingham, there's a law that said you cannot go into the back of a funeral home unless you're one of three things: deceased, a mortician, or a member of the clergy. And most of the civil rights leaders were Reverend this, Reverend that, and so forth. When we look over at the Municipal Auditorium, that building is very historical because in 1937, there was a race relations conference held here in Birmingham. So we had the building white and black, one side and one side for the other. Now, the thing is that Eleanor Roosevelt, the First Lady of the United States of America, was one of the speakers at this conference. And when she arrived, she saw that her seat was placed on the white side of the room. and she demanded that her seat be placed in the middle of the room because she was First Lady not for white people, but she was First Lady for all the people.
Yeah, I'm good.
The next stop we have on the Monuments in Motion tour is Eddie Kendricks Memorial Park. In the 60s and early 70s, the soundtrack of America had to be Motown. And the heart of Motown had to be the Tempting Temptations. And when we think about that in Birmingham, we think about how many of these temptations, due to the Great Migration, and the effects of the Great Migration that continued into the 1930s and 40s and 50s, where a number of individuals left the South, they went to the North, they went to the West to try to make their fortunes, have better lives, and escape the confines of segregation. And some of those people were people like Eddie Kendricks.
How do you dance?
That's it, that's it, that's it. She's got sunshine.
That was so cool and so easy, so fun. Thank you.
Thank you for coming along.
pleasure.
I hope it was as fantastic as you thought it would be.
Oh, absolutely.
And I hope we exceeded those expectations.
Oh, yes, we did, especially with my picture. Very fun, you know, and doing everything by bike is just much easier.
Great, right? Great, okay.
Thank you for having me. Now, this church deserves a whole tour on its own.
All of these things together. They built this church with walls made 2 feet thick of stone. That's going to be very important come 1963. Because in 1963, Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth is going to win a court case, Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham City Schools, that's going to force Birmingham to integrate its school system without delay. And the Ku Klux Klan decided to terrorize people and frighten them away from being able to take advantage of that court decision. When they bombed this church, they called themselves intimidating people and frightening people away from one another. But this church bombing led people to come together in this city. And it also led John Kennedy to be able to call for the Civil Rights Act and Lyndon Johnson to be able to get it signed. It was a very powerful bomb. It was meant to do a tremendous amount of harm, but the construction of the building prevented that. Even though the 4 little girls were killed, we have to look and we see the bomb was placed on the outside of a window. That was a weakness in the building. But the rest of the construction protected everybody else inside of the building.
This is where the little girls were when the bomb exploded. This is underneath the church.
Because of the location and the size, most notable events in the African American community happened here. Now, because of that, the church becomes a target. And many times the church was threatened. Finally, that threat was carried out on September the 15th, 1963.
As we're talking about bombs, Birmingham at some point was nicknamed Bombingham. There's a street here that suffered dozens and dozens of explosions, and it became known as Dynamite Hill. This was a street. On one side, the blacks used to live, on the other, the whites, until a black lady acquired the right to live on the white side. Her house was this one here. It was bombed 3 times, and everybody knew who was responsible. It was a white neighbor that lived just a few blocks that way.
we're having dinner tonight. How lovely.
We are a Southern small shared plate restaurant, and we really advocate for family style dining. So we really want everybody to share like what we bring out to the table. We're also a completely wood-fired restaurant. We don't have any gas or electric lines. Everything is done wood-fired. Most of our inspiration is from South American dishes, Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina. Over here we have our jamón serrano, which is going to be grilled French bread. It has an orange marmalade spread over the bread. It's topped with the serrano ham and then topped with shaved manchego cheese. Over here we have our Spanish charcuterie plate. We have chorizo, sobrasada, and Iberico. It's actually a super cool product from Spain. It's aged a lot longer than most other cured pork products, but the pig is also fed only a diet of acorns and nuts, so it creates like this super lean, awesome product, but it also gives it like this really cool flavor.
I'm eating a candle now. This is beef fat candle.
It's actually frozen beef fat, and they make it in the shape of a candle. They have the wick in it, and they light it. And so once it melts, you mix it in the tomato-based mixture, and you take the wick out, and you mix it up, and then you sock it with the bread. And it is amazing.
Of course, it's good, huh? Good morning. This tour that I did was part of TBACS, which is the Travel Bloggers Conference, and it was organized by the Convention and Visitors Bureau of Birmingham. I'd like to thank them so much because it was amazing, not only for the information they gave us, but the way they did it. We had the opportunity to talk to people who lived through the 50s and 60s, and they shared their own experience. But the coolest thing was actually something that no one mentioned, but got obvious in their behavior and their attitudes towards the past. They got over it.